What's up guys, Matt Jones here, back with another video, and we are looking at a new set of actions for Microsoft Dataverse in Power Automate. These new actions dropped last week, depending on when I put this video out, and what they allow you to do is they actually allow you to connect to different Microsoft Dataverse environments. Now I know what you're saying, hey, we could already do that, there's a thing called the Microsoft Data Legacy Connector, blah blah. Yes, we could, but that connector is being deprecated in favour of the new connector, and the new connector didn't have this feature, so this was a parity gap. So this is a list of new actions that allow you to connect and do data operations on different environments. So what I'll actually show you is, I'll show you a couple of the actions, I'll show you how to connect them to different environments, some tips and tricks, and we'll talk about some of the limitations that we've got at the moment. So let's jump into it. So I'm in Power Automate here. This is the new flow designer. So I'm going to be using this one on all my videos going forward, just so people get used to this new designer and they can see how it works. I'm going to add a new step in, going to add an action, and we're going to search for the Microsoft Dataverse Connector. So we'll search for Dataverse, and we can see we've got two. We've got the Microsoft Dataverse and Microsoft Dataverse Legacy Connector. So this Legacy Connector is the one that allowed you to connect to different environments, and what Microsoft have done is they've updated the current connector to allow you to connect to different environments. So we'll click on See More. And what you'll notice is there are several preview actions here. So add a new row to selected environment, preview. Delete a row from a selected environment, preview. Preview. So you get the idea. The concept of this is that instead of amalgamating them into the single connector, they have a preview connector out at the moment. Whether this will be the default connector going forward and default actions going forward, I don't know. But what we do know is that we have a list of new actions. So again, it's kind of up to you with this. You can still continue to use the standard connectors, the standard actions. I would not recommend using the preview actions in production unless you had a real serious need to do so, with just a massive caveat that it may break at any time, it may be removed at any time, functionality may change before it goes GA, so still would not recommend using those preview actions, but it is good to get an understanding of what they can do, test them out, give the feedback back to Microsoft. That's what it's there for. So there's several of them now. As you can see, it makes the list quite substantial. If I go to add a new row to a selected environment, for instance, click on this, it's going to give me two things to start from instead of just the one. So the first one is environment, so choose an environment. Now, when you choose an environment here, what it's going to do is it's going to hard code in the environment that you are trying to connect to. So this is a list of my environments. I've got the Matt Jones environment, MTJ2, MTJ3, and MTJ US test. If I choose any one of these environments, that will hard code that value into Power Automate. So if I'm building this in my dev environment and then I move it through to my UAT environment, what that's going to do is it's going to hard code in the value. So if you have an environment that you want to integrate with and you want to test in, so say you have one test environment that's outside of your dev UAT prod, and you want to just write data to it, and then you have a production environment where you want to write data to it in the future for the production, you may want to just hard code in that test environment just to test those things, but this is not really that great a thing to do, but we can still do it. So if we want to do this, for instance, if I go to MTJ2 and then choose a table, and we'll choose just a regular accounts table, I think. It may take a little bit of time, because if I'm in as you can see in the top right hand corner, I've got the Matt Jones environment that I'm in at the moment, and I'm pointing it to a different environment. It may take a little bit of time to load those tables from that other environment. But we can see we can do it, and we can see we get a list of tables here. So we'll choose the accounts table, and then it'll go off. It'll bring back all the data for that table. So we've got an account name here that we can type in. So we'll call this new cross environment account. So we can still do all the same things. So the table's the exact same, the data is the exact same. So this kind of enables a few scenarios where we could potentially be doing cross data. So again, if you have data that you may want to share between systems, this is a really good use case for it. So say you create a ticket in one system to handle your customer service stuff, but then you actually want to create an additional record in another system to say follow up to see if they had good customer service and things like that, and that's handled by a separate team. This is actually a really good use case for something like this. So we'll put in MCJ2, and that's all you kind of need. You just need to specify the environment, specify the table, and fill in the requested fields and stuff like that. So what we'll do is we'll hit save, and then we will go to test. We'll manually run the flow, we'll hit test. I think I've still got a few inputs in here, so we'll just chuck some random data in there, click done, and then our flow is going to go off and it's going to run. See, the trigger happened successfully at 0 seconds, and then we just need to wait with this little grey circle now. You can see hover over it says waiting, and there you have it. It took 14 seconds, but the next action succeeded. So that creates a row of data in another table. So if I go up and I take a look at my environments in the Maker portal, and I switch over to my MCJ2 environment, this one. If I go to tables, and then I go to account, I can see that I have a new account in here that says new cross environment account. So that's that brand new account, and that's in a completely different environment from where I started out. So that's in a different environment called MCJ2, not in the Matt Collins Jones environment. Now that's all great, but what happens if we want to add in some ALM? So instead of hard coding in a value, what are my options? So if you do want to use this connector, you can always choose the current environment. So this will be the way that you will use it going forward if this becomes the de facto action for this connector. So if you want to just always have it run in the same environment, so you're not connecting to other environments, you can just use the current value, and then when you move from your dev to your UAT and your UAT to production, it's always just going to stay in that same environment. You don't have to hard code a value in to go off and look at another environment. Or have to update these things manually and bring in sort of managed layers and stuff like that. Now there is a couple of other options. So if you again want to just hard code in a value, you can enter a custom value. So you can enter just the URL of your Dataverse instance. So whatever it is, .crm4 or crm11 or whatever your prefix is or suffix is, you can add those things in and you can hard code those values in here. This does also work with dynamic content. So if you get a list of your environments from somewhere and you want to add them and you want to manually go through and add them in using dynamic content, so list your environments, grab the URL, pop it in here, that's going to work as well. So this is actually really versatile. It's not requiring dedicated things to be able to enable this ALM. However, we can use dedicated things to enable this ALM. So let's take a look at environment variables. So I'm in my solution here, and if I go up to new, and then more, and then environment variable, I can create an environment variable for my Dataverse instances. So I'll call this MCJ2 Dataverse, and then I can give it a description. So URL of Dataverse for MCJ2. Data type, I can choose data source. And in data sources, previously we only had access to SharePoint for this environment variable data source. Those are the ones that were supported, so you could use them in Canvas apps and you could use them in Power Automate. And then a few months ago, Microsoft Dataverse and SAP ERP showed up randomly with no way to use them. We now have a use for them. So if I choose Microsoft Dataverse, I get my option to add a current value or add in a default value. I'll add in a current value for now. So I'll say, right, okay, the current value in this environment is going to be MCJ2. So what that's going to do is, so you can see it's automatically said, hey, which environment. It's giving me the environment selectors, so we can only connect to environments that we have access to. So I have access to all 4 of these environments. I'm saying which one of these do I want to connect to. I want to connect to MTJ2, and I can choose save. And then when I move my solution from this environment to the next environment, I can update that environment variable at the point of import and say, okay, I actually wanted to point to MCJ3 now, or I want to point it to one of my other environments. So if you need a scenario where you need to change that environment, so again, if you're trying to integrate between a sort of like a primary system and a secondary system, you want to make sure that you are updating those things as you go through. So when you get to prod, you can automatically import your environment variable, update it to be the right environment, and then push all the data to the prod environments and not the test environments anymore. And similarly, you don't want to push data to the prod environments and then have to delete it later. So we'll go back to our flow, and what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to hit refresh, and we'll see where we end up. In an ideal world, you'd end up back in the same flow and in the same designer, but who knows today? Hey, it worked, cool. So if I go into this action, so the add a row action, and I go down to add custom value, hence custom value here, I get my little pill, my little expression pill and dynamic content pill, choose dynamic content, and then my top parameter here, which is a list of my environment variables, MCJ Dataverse 2, I can choose that, and then it automatically knows what environment I want to populate data into. So it's going to take a minute. It's lost the account name there. I don't know if it counts back. So it was connecting to that environment, it was pulling back the metadata of what columns are in this environment and in this table, and then it's allowing me to continue. So if this was a brand new one, it would just do that straight away. It was because I was moving it from a hard-coded value to an environment variable value, you had to just do that check. So if I choose new cross environment account and hit 2, and we can save this and we can test this out again. So I'll hit save, and we can choose test and then manually test. Actually, we'll choose automatic test, and we'll choose test. You can see our flow is running, and then we'll wait for the green to come out here. So that took a little bit shorter. And actually, as you'll notice, because I had this open when I hit test, it actually brought me straight to that pane, which is really useful. So that's another great tip. So you can see the outputs here, where we put in that input parameter there. There we go. And if we go back to our accounts table over here, and if we choose edit new tab, I could have just hit refresh, but you know, we can see we now have the new cross environment too. So that is an example of using an environment variable with these actions. So that's what makes these things really powerful. You don't have to hard code in values. You don't need to use actions to go off and list your environments and then find the right one. You can actually use environment variables for good, healthy ALM and specify which ones you want to connect to. If you're not connected to an environment, you can just use the current environment and it's just going to do the same thing. So it's very similar to the legacy connector that we were used to with Microsoft Dataverse, which a lot of us haven't been using in a number of years because it's going to be deprecated. I'm going to need to update to the new connector. So I've always been recommending to all my customers to use the new connector, use that, and then we also have other ways that we could interact with their environments, like things like API calls, those in other environments that didn't require that legacy connector. But now we have a new built-in way to support these integration scenarios, which is really powerful for makers, for citizen devs, and for consultants and architects alike. We can now use these built-in connectors. No longer do we have to revert to code to be able to do something that we used to be able to do. So that's just a brief overview of some of the new, or one of the new actions, how you use it, how you maintain good ALM by doing it. So what do you guys think? Is this something that you've really been crying out for? Is it something that you're probably never going to use because you don't have those sorts of scenarios? What do you think about the experience with environment variables? Let me know in the comments down below. If you enjoyed this video, if you'd like and subscribe to my YouTube channel, that'd be great. And I'll see you in the next one.